Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Arka Talks podcast. My name is Ben Goresky, and I'm your host for this episode. And I'm sitting with a dear friend, a very good friend of mine through many, many years, Steve Parr. Stoked to have you here, man. And I'm excited to have this conversation.
I'm so stoked to be here, Ben. Thanks so much for inviting me to be on the pod. And I'm excited for our conversation.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to be sitting here with you because I remember something like 10 years ago sitting down with you for you to be the first episode that I recorded on the Evolving Man podcast. And we had a great conversation. I think we rented the studio at Float House, right?
Right.
Yeah. And we've recorded many sessions since then, and we've grown a lot since then. You and I have been through a lot. And I'm hoping that we can weave some of that history in here today and talk about your journey in men's work and talk about the growth that you've experienced throughout your life, but also in the time that I've known you. And maybe we can dig into our relationship, your experience with the Brotherhood, and have you share some of the value that you've gleaned from the work that we do.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. I mean, the Brotherhood has been the most important choice that I've ever made. So I'm really excited to have some time to unpack that and why it's so significant for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe where we start is, let's go with a bit of what your childhood was like. Like, where did you start your life? Like, what were you like as a young male? What were you like as a teenager? What issues were you having with direction and guidance and getting into trouble? Just give us an idea of like what kind of young fella you were.
Sure. I was a real attention seeker when I was a kid. I was looking to be in mischief. I was causing a lot of trouble. I grew up in Ladner, suburb of Vancouver, and mom, dad, sister, so small nuclear family. And, my mom and dad have enjoyed a stable relationship throughout. But I would say that there was not a lot of emotional closeness or connection in my childhood. So there was a coldness. And again, of course, not because of anything, just that's how my parents grew up. They only had so much capacity to know how to express affection. Yeah. And so they gave me what they could give.
Would you describe yourself as an emotional kid?
Yes, I would, but like maybe not in the classical sense. Yeah. I don't know. Like I didn't scream and cry a ton, but I was always like looking for like some pushback. When I say I was a troublemaker, like I'll give some quick illustrations. Like when I was 3 or 4 years old, I dumped water on my parents' TV. I filled my parents' gas tank with water and destroyed the car.
At what age?
4 years old.
Oh my
4 years old. I remember we used to burn trash like in a metal garbage can on the front driveway.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the 80s, I guess. I don't know. Highly illegal now, but yeah, Ladner, suburb of Vancouver. Like you
just burn your garbage.
Yeah, you just burn. Well, not your garbage, but your leaves and.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, trimmings and stuff, tree trimmings. Anyways, I remember it's on fire, and I'm like, I'm gonna get some attention. So like, I start crawling around the burning garbage can. Yeah. So all the smoke coming out, and I'm like pretending to die. And I'm just hoping like a neighbor's going to drive by and be like, what's this fucking kid doing?
Okay. Yeah. Because dad's not there.
Yeah.
You're just near this burning barrel and you're crawling around.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't think I was getting the attention that I needed or wanted. So I kept seeking, trying to get it, trying to provoke. Essentially, I had a lot of swearing problems, behavioral stuff at school, just looking for trouble.
Can you give a couple examples where like you got the trouble that you maybe weren't looking for, but you got a reaction from the world in some way? And I'm also interested in how your parents reacted to you dumping water in the gas tank or dumping water on the television.
Yeah, so the reaction was pretty muted, right? It was pretty not there.
Mm-hmm.
So that absence that I experienced with them was carried into how they would approach discipline. They weren't good disciplinarians.
Yeah.
They weren't good at setting boundaries. So yeah, in elementary school, I would provoke my teachers in the same way, and they were better. They were better at saying, "Hey, that's not okay. Go to the principal's office," etc. I remember in grade 5, I had caught wind that one of my teachers was on Prozac or something like that, which was, obviously far more stigmatized 30, 40 years ago. Yeah. And I called her out on it. I don't know. It was
in front of the class.
In front of the class, humiliated her. And she was absolutely furious and probably quite sensitive about the subject too. Yeah. And so that got me into a lot of trouble. Yeah. And I guess moving into my teenage years, the consequence was really getting fired. I got fired I had 5 jobs in my teenage years, and I got fired from each one of them. I was just clearly disobedient, and yeah.
There's this pattern of you looking to be met by the structures of the world. Yeah. And, I think a part of us in that moment is like, we're looking to find the edges, but we're also looking to find where we're welcome. Like we kind of, especially boys, I feel like we need to test the edges, and we need to find out what are the rules of this game that we're playing here in life? And like, can I find the edges and not be like exiled, mm-hmm. and ostracized, but also not be ignored. And so you were getting this like different kind of exile by not like really fully being met with boundaries and structure and love at the same time in your house. Yeah. And so you were just, the search continued. The
search continued. And it was, I'll give you actually a great example. This was really a pivotal moment in my childhood because my parents wouldn't give me that discipline. So I started seeking it elsewhere, right? Yeah. Like with the teacher interactions, but then also I had a best friend and his name was Ryan Poirier. And Ryan and we played hockey together, and his dad was just awesome. He was an NHL player or ex-NHL, total alpha kind of stud, masculine energy, right? And just a fun guy. Took me skiing, like kind of took me into his family, him and his wife. And Ryan and I spent a lot of time together. And then at one point I chose to test the relationship. And so I framed Ryan for stealing a video game from London Drugs.
Right. So you actually stole it?
I actually stole it. And then I planted the box in his bedroom. Right. Right. And I was like, we're like, where's the game?
Let's see what happens.
Where'd the game go? And and it was discovered in his bedroom, and Ryan was like, I didn't put it. So I was found out quickly enough, of course. And Ryan's dad, he exiled me. He said he was very upset, and understandably so. He said, you can't be friends with my son anymore, and you can't, you're no longer a part of our life.
You're a little liar. We can't have you over here.
We can't have you around.
In our house.
Yeah, you're destructive. Yeah,
you don't adhere to the code that we live by.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and that was painful, and tough lesson to learn. Yeah.
And I think that's a fair move. That's a move that I would make with my kid. Right. Because you're not family to them, like this is an optional relationship. Yes. Right. And so you were crossing a boundary that, you're out. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas in your own family, you have more grace and there's more space for forgiveness. You cross boundaries, but like your family, right? So there's like an ability to come back. And I think in an ideal home scenario, you test a relationship, you push the boundaries, and you receive the discipline, you receive the boundary enforcement, but you also are met with love and compassion that, in some way you didn't know what you were doing. This was an unconscious choice, and that you were actually looking for something, and what was that thing? And there's an opportunity for redemption and repair, right? And this is how we learn to be in the world. This is how we learn like what's okay and what's not. We kind of get spanked every once in a while, metaphorically, in life, and that gets us back into line.
Well, and that's what creates deeper trust, healing, confidence, etc. Like this is what a young man or a young anybody needs to experience in the world is I've crossed a threshold, I got spanked, and a repair has occurred.
Yeah.
And now my relationship with myself and with the people who love me and are my caregivers is stronger. Mm-hmm. What I lacked was there was no repair moment either with, my third party dad or with my parents themselves. Mm-hmm. Their response was just to ignore it. And they were kind of blamed him, for not being more compassionate, but they didn't really discipline me around the event. So there was just no integration. And I think that's what everybody needs. When you cross the threat, when you make a mistake in life, you need to integrate it. And if you don't, then you don't get the lesson. And I don't really think I got the lesson at that time. So I had to learn that lesson again and again until, later on.
Until things got worse.
Things got worse before they got better. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I can very much relate to how you were as a kid. Like I was, attention seeking is definitely the word. And that got named a lot on my report cards and in my parent teacher interviews. And I was constantly getting kicked out of the class. I didn't make as many bold moves as you made, dumping water on TVs and into gas tanks, but I definitely would like poke and prod and goof off and distract the classroom. Like I was definitely, class clown is another word that got named a lot. And so I was in most grades through elementary school, I either had a desk right next to the teacher's desk or like outside in the hallway. That by the end of the year, that's where my desk was. Yeah. I either had to be so close that she was like babysitting me and giving me special attention, or I was not allowed in the classroom because I couldn't be trusted. And I think there was a similar thing going on for me in my childhood. It was a little bit different, but like my brother was sort of taking up all the space in the house, and my mom was the disciplinarian, but she was kind of like disciplining my brother a lot, and my dad was just at work a lot,
right?
And didn't really carry the kind of like dominant energy that I think I actually needed, the healthy dominant energy. Mm-hmm. The only dominant energy I was experiencing was like my brother's like kind of angry dominant energy. So I basically just like hid at home. And then at school, I was just like you.
Yeah.
I was just a problem. I was suspended. And a lot of I was suspended often. I got kicked out of a few schools, and the same sort of thing. It's like some punishment or some intervention, but never really being met with the type of, call it masculine leadership that I really needed at the time, and ended up going to see doctors. I don't know. Were you ever like medicated?
Not as a child. No, not as a child or a teenager. I did get medicated in my 20s, struggling with depression, anxiety, but no, not as a kid.
So take us like further into your teens and your 20s. Like, sure. What's life like for Steve Parr then?
Yeah. Teenage years were really tough. I struggled a lot with self-esteem, had really bad acne, was the brunt of the totem pole, of the social totem pole. And took a lot of heat in high school, and couldn't find a way in. I was constantly seeking to be one of the cool kids, which of course makes you not cool.
Yeah.
And seeking acceptance. I isolated a lot. So I retreated to video games, porn, the usual sort of suspects. Porn wasn't such a huge thing as it is now, but certainly like a ton of video games, and I really just stuck to myself. So that was really hard. I did have a couple of bright moments, like talking about masculine leadership. I had one teacher, in my grade 12 year. I was a middling kind of student, didn't really do very well. And then in grade 12, he just called me out. He just called me forward, right? And demanded more. Just demanded a higher level of effort and demanded that I apply myself. And
did he do that privately, or was it in front of the class? Like, how did he reach you?
Both. Yeah. Both. Yeah. I was still a little shit inside of his class, and he wouldn't tolerate it. Yeah. With most of the teachers that I had, I could push them around with, my wit or my energy. Yeah. But with him, he was he set clear standards about what was okay and what was not okay inside of his classroom. And then in terms of the work that I submitted, if it fell below a standard that he believed I was capable of, he would name it really clearly and, you know, kind of eviscerate my work. Right. So it was really good. And it transformed my relationship with school. I became one of the top students in the school, and it helped my transition into adulthood for sure.
What was he teaching you? What subjects?
English literature.
English literature.
Yeah.
Interesting. So one teacher shifted how you saw school and how you were showing up in school.
Yeah. No, I'm very grateful for him. Yeah. Michael Moorhead. I don't know if he's still with us, but
wow.
Great guy. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, he was driven by a genuine passion, a genuine interest. He loved literature. He just loved books. So it's that passion that animated him. And I loved words too. And so we bonded over that.
Yeah. So there you had like a model of healthy masculinity with a certain level of like boundaries and structure that he upholds and he lives by, and that he's like going to call you into and not let you mess around. Like there's a certain kind of like not to be fucked with energy that you really needed. And that I think all men need to integrate into themselves. Like we need to learn to have that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think we're looking for that in the world and we're not really seeing it.
Yeah.
Everybody's like outsourcing their not to be fucked with attitude or way of showing up to the structures of the world, to the police, to the social system, to whatever the laws are, you know, instead of like having it themselves, you know? And so here you encounter a guy who's got it, you know, and not just like from a place of acting it or wanting to be it, but he just like embodied it.
Yeah.
Right. You tested him and he passed.
He passed. Absolutely. Yeah. So that was helpful. It wasn't enough to, you know, completely rewrite everything that I needed to rewrite to become a healthy man. That journey would take a lot longer. So I suppose to transition into my 20s, I would say that was the period, early to late 20s, when I was seeking to self-initiate. You know, we hear a lot about in men's work about masculine initiation, right? Like what's the classic kind of framework? The men of the village take the boy out into the forest. He has encounters with wild boars and tigers and whatnot, and isolation and his own mind.
Starvation.
Yeah. And then comes back a man, you know, with a couple of scrapes, and then he's welcomed back into the village, right? So
dissolving of one's own ego. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
Right? Humbling.
And confronting his own fear.
Yep.
You know, and finding not having the ability the recourse to go back to mom, you know, to bail him out. So I was unconsciously trying to create that for myself. So I put myself in really uncomfortable situations, which was great, you know, which was good in many ways, but also quite chaotic. It was good because I was getting some of that initiation. I was getting confronted with my fear. So, you know, I went tree planting. So I put myself in a foreign sort of environment, you know, and then I did some school in France. I lived there for 4 months, and then I backpacked across Europe with no money in the middle of winter for 4 months and slept outside, slept on trains, did whatever I could to kind of just survive, you know, and just sort of put myself in, perhaps needlessly, but in these uncomfortable, weird situations just to see how I would do. And I did okay, you know, like on some level, it was really good for me. On others, it was like self-punishment, right? So it was this chaotic self-initiation, which is, I think, what happens when boys try to do that. When boys try to become men on their own, they will do things like engage in risky behavior. I was definitely engaged in risky behavior. And then, you know, later on in my 20s, there was the drugs, the alcohol, all those sort of like, let's push the psychological threshold of what I can experience.
Yeah.
But there was, some really good experiences. I biked across Canada. I met some crazy people, spent 6 months out of school, just cycling across Canada. And I tried my hand at a lot of different professions, and I eventually found my way back to school.
Found your way back to law school?
Yeah, well, to undergrad, because I did a year of undergrad, and then I dropped out, did all these crazy travels, And then I went back to undergrad, finished that off, and then I went to law school.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, throughout this initiatory process of my 20s, I struggled immensely with anxiety, depression, suicidality. I made a number of attempts, 2 or 3 suicide attempts during this period. Obviously, any suicide attempt is serious, but yeah, they were all. I'm lucky to be alive, you know. Like things kind of conspired in my favor to give me a second and a third and a fourth shot, and yeah, I would fall into these very long funks of like 6 to 9, 12 months even, where I was doing nothing. And this is as a man in his 20s, you know, a boy in his 20s, of doing nothing but playing video games, distracting myself, and literally just thinking of ways to get out, to die. So.
Yeah. So there's definitely a through line here of like, you're a dude with a ton of energy, a ton of potential, a strong mind, and, you know, wanting to find the edges in life. And like, just, there's definitely like an adventurer in you, right? Like not all people ever in their lifetime have the motivation to just like go hitchhiking, traveling through a different country / continent with no money in the winter, you know, like there's a real adventurous spirit there, and a real like searching for something, and a real like, I also see like a trying to meet your needs for energetic input output, right?
Yeah.
Just matching. And, you know, when you're younger, you're testing those boundaries of like, yeah, what will my parents do? And like, what are, you know, what am I going to get in trouble for? And like, and then as a man, when it's clear that like you're on your own now, it's time to carve your own path, just like going out into the larger world and like testing yourself and testing your limits. So I'm curious if like, I have this perspective of like, even though the Europe trip was hectic, and you definitely woke up in a few situations where you could be killed, because I know some of those stories. It was like more exciting and joyful and like just all the things, and it was more worth living for than like being in a basement or like just on your computer and spending all of your days like doing nothing. Like that sounds like the ultimate prison, especially for someone like you.
Oh yeah, that was hell. Like the depression part was hell for sure. The Europe part was uncomfortable. I wouldn't say it was joyful.
Yeah, joyful is not the right word.
But it was stimulating. It was kind of a healthy type of stimulation, and I took a lot of pride in like being like, oh yeah, I'm like in Slovenia, like reading Dostoevsky and this whole romanticism of like, you know, trying to become a man and becoming a better person. So I always had that drive. Like I always had that drive in high school and then throughout my 20s of, I know I'm going to be doing something cool and something ambitious and something important in the world, you know, that instinct of self-importance, which is such a double-edged sword for a young man. You know, if you have that, and I think a lot of guys do, like, and they should, you know, they should want to take up some space in the world. Yeah. That's a healthy instinct.
Yeah.
But if it's not well supported by their environment, by their core relationships, by the people that they can go back to when they bump up against life and get knocked down, the man, and I did, can very easily turn very self-destructive. Yeah. And I turned horrifically self-destructive, and to the point of wanting to take my life. Because when I met with failure, and you know, I continued to struggle in work and get fired from jobs and whatever, I would take it very hard. If I went through a breakup, I was shattered. I had no ego. You know, I had no sort of mental resilience. And if I wasn't seeing myself as successful or on a path towards success, then I was worthless.
What's the point?
What's the point? I'm never going to amount to anything. Yeah. And I felt so ashamed for feeling depressed. I associated that it was so weak.
Right. Loser,
you know, etc. Yeah.
And at this point in your life, you didn't have any real like mentorship or mentors?
No, I didn't. I had some peers that I had formed some relationships with, but you know, blind leading the blind, right? Yep. When you're friends are in their early 20s.
Yep.
Even if they were well-meaning, like they don't have the capacity to just kind of support that. So,
yeah, this is a real issue. I think, especially for guys these days in their 20s, because I think a lot of guys these days spend their entire 20s just kind of like exploring, finding themselves, you know, trying on different work, trying on different studies, and, you know, trying and failing, iterating, trying out relationships and, you know, them not working, having breakups. And it's really useful to have somebody who's like 40, 50, 60 in your life at that age to help you zoom out on the life path, and that like your life path is not going to be like what you thought it was when you were younger, which is like, you go out, you're going to go out, you're going to get an education, or you're going to find good work. You're going to get better and better at it. And it's going to be just like a smooth rise to the top. Yeah. And by the time you're 30, which is old in your mind when you're a teenager, you're going to be just winning, just on a mountaintop.
Yeah.
And it's just not that way. That's just life. It just isn't that way. And, you know, we come into adult life with those expectations, and then we're met with the reality, and we need help walking through that. We need guidance and perspective. We need to be able to zoom out. And, you know, I think about my own life and how I was actually lucky to have been thrown into rehab against my will when I was 16, and then I had some good mentors in there, finish rehab, and start going to 12-step programs and always having a sponsor. And my sponsor was, I always would pick a guy who was older than 50. And I had a couple really great sponsors throughout those years. And I'd sit and share with them, and they would be like, hey, listen, yeah, I've been there. I know what it's like. Like, just, you're a good kid. Like, here's the qualities you have. Don't worry. You know, like, you can't lose in this life if you maintain this course that you're on. Just learn your lessons. Like, they really helped keep me out of that.
Yeah.
Mid-20s, or, you know, just the depression that can come up, the anxiety that can come up around like needing to fulfill your dreams quickly. You know, there's an impatience too at that age.
So much.
You're so driven.
Yeah.
And it can turn against you, you know, and my mentors at that age would actually point out my drive. They'd be like, hey, listen, you're a really driven guy.
Yeah.
And that is a good thing, but don't turn this masochistic. Don't turn that drive inward and dark, you know, against yourself. Keep that thing pointed out at life. Right.
I remember I was just cresting into a deep pit of depression and despair after getting fired from a job. And I think this illustrates your point perfectly. I remember running through the streets of Edmonton, training my body and listening to Tony Robbins tapes, you know, or CDs or whatever at the time. And just like drilling like his messages around self-improvement, which of course are healthy and great. I love Tony Robbins, just went to see him. But you know, the energy that I had behind that was like, you better learn this shit or you're a piece of shit and you're not worth anything. And you got to go if you don't, you know, rise up to
win.
This, win. Right. So, and I had done a terrific job of alienating any potential relationships with healthy masculine figures.
Right.
You know, you've been doing men's work in a way since you were 16, you know, since that rehab moment, and had the good fortune of implanting yourself into that 12-step community, which is very, you know, has a lot of parallels with what we do at Arka, and just in terms of a strong, steady, stable, structured container. Yeah. And I didn't find that kind of container until much later. I mean, I joined Arka, of course, at the inception when I was 30, 31. But I found men's work a little bit earlier when I was 25.
Right. What was your first men's work workshop? Was it Sterling or Mankind?
Yeah, it was the Mankind Project. So my buddy Matt Daviduk, he invited me over to a Mankind Project initiation weekend.
Oh, you did the New Warrior training.
Yeah, the New Warrior training adventure. Yeah. And of course, the contents of it are confidential.
But it's awesome, right?
So,
everybody who goes is like, that was fucking great.
Yeah, it was fucking great. Yeah. And it was wild. And I encountered myself in ways that were totally foreign to me, and met a lot of caring men, A lot of men who had great hearts and clearly wanted to help themselves and help other guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was before you went to law school?
Yeah, so I did a women's studies degree.
Right.
Which again was part of me seeking specialness and being, the unique butterfly, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
were you the only guy?
I was the only guy in women's studies. It was actually not a great strategy for dating. Yeah. So it didn't really
work out.
Didn't work out. Yeah. I was also trying a lot of things on, such as wearing dresses and cross-gendering and just fucking with any sort of structure that I could find in society.
Yeah, you're still doing that. Yeah.
Oh, dude, like that. I was just getting started at that point. And and then I went to law school a little bit later. Yeah. So I found the New Warrior Training Adventure, and then I joined a men's group. So they met, I think, every 2 weeks, maybe every month, outdoors in a and did the work, did that work with them for a few years. And yeah, I would say that it was okay, good, not great.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that it wasn't great was because the men in there were all well-meaning, but there was a lot of dysfunction in their lives. These were men that, to put it bluntly, I didn't admire.
Right. And they weren't being necessarily called out on that dysfunction in the circle. There was like other stuff, other exercises happening, but not getting hot seated on why you're settling in your work.
Yeah.
Or
exactly. Yeah. Why is your relationship a mess? Why are you getting divorced? Why are you not succeeding in your career? Why are you completely out of shape and not taking care of your body?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were a lot of, just men in there that I was like, do not want to have their lives. Mm-hmm. And of course, I was not going to call them out. I was way too immature. That's not my role at that stage, right? I'm supposed to be receiving mentorship, really.
Yeah.
So, So that didn't really take me very far. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it was a taste of of that type of structured connection that I knew was going to be good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you have this part of you that just doesn't settle. You're not going to settle. And so you went into a community where like you could get some value, and you did get some value, but you also saw like where the holes were and what you wanted more of, which is one of the qualities you have. And it's very useful. It's been very useful for your life. It's been very useful for you, for me in your life and our things that we've done together. So you're always looking to grow, you're always looking for more.
Yeah.
So you go to law school. You did really well in law school, right?
Yeah.
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 So you really started to like pull your shit together.
I had a good woman. I had a great woman my first year of law school. Bless her if she's listening. She was like, she just took care of me. We were in love, and I was in desperate need of somebody to help stabilize my life and my mind. Mm-hmm. And she showed up in my life as that person, mm-hmm. and allowed me for probably the first time in my 20s. I was probably 26, 27 at this point, to feel sane and feel healthy and feel grounded and not have crippling anxiety 24/7. Mm-hmm. And so, I was one of the top students in my class. I was getting every opportunity that I could have wanted. Everything was kind of good.
What did she do to stabilize you? Like, was she like mothering you, or like what
yes.
How do you describe it? Okay. So you're getting like a feminine nurturance.
Yes. No, she was highly nurturing.
Emotional.
She took care of the household. She took care, like, just energetically, she was a total healer, yoga teacher, therapist, and really, cared for me.
Yeah. I
remember our first date, she like wrote like a poem, and, just an incredibly nurturing presence in my life. And I didn't know how badly I needed that, because I had never really experienced it before.
Yeah. Okay. This is a really cool point, because like we've been talking this whole time about like your need for the masculine structure to come into your life and meet your fire. You needed the outer fire to come and meet your inner fire. But here comes the water, and you're like, oh, wow, that's also something I needed really badly.
Yeah.
That I didn't even know I was looking for.
I was so thirsty. I had no idea. it felt so incredibly good to have that in my life, and to finally have some soothing. You know, we talk a lot about, like, that's what we learn from mom, ideally, from the feminine, is how to self-soothe, how to manage, how to regulate, how to bring down the nervous system from alarm to, okay, I'm here and everything's going to be okay.
Grounded and present. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you finish law school, and that's when we meet.
Yeah.
Right at the end of law school.
Yeah. We meet at the end of law school. So did school in Victoria, moved over to Vancouver, and I was doing a coach training program. I was trying to become a life coach.
Yeah.
I was really unclear about whether I wanted to be a lawyer or not. And had a lot of anxiety about that as a path. So I did a 12-month course down in Seattle. And I remember I met a guy, Scott, through that, and had asked Scott about ayahuasca. And Scott said, yeah, I've just done ayahuasca and there's a ceremony coming up and you should go and you should meet this guy, Ben. He's looking for a ride up there, or you were offering a ride up there. You guys should go together.
Yeah.
And I remember adding you on Facebook, and you were doing a handstand with your shirt off, looking all jacked, and at Base Coast in front of like a stand of speakers.
Shambhala or something.
Or Shambhala or something like that. And I was like, this is my guy. This guy is awesome. Yeah. I was so pumped to meet you. And sure enough, we did. And we went to that ceremony together.
Yeah.
That was our meeting.
Yeah, I remember when we met in a park ahead of time just to like get to know the crew who we were going with, and you rolled up with your bike, and I just noticed your huge legs and how jacked you were, and I was like, "Where'd you come from?" You're like, "I came from over here." And I was like, "You rode your bike all the way here?" You're like, "Yeah, I just ride my bike all day long." And I was like, "Wow, this guy's jacked." Yeah, so there's like a mutual admiration there, and and then off we go to space together, and safe to say that at the end of that weekend, there was a friendship already budding for sure. And you had Airbnb'd your apartment while you were away. And when I dropped you off, you mentioned that. And I was like, how much did you make from that? Because you were like living in a pretty shitty apartment in Vancouver. And you told me how much you made from renting your place out for 3 days. And I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy, dude. Like you could really make money doing this. And we started talking about that in the background for the next 6 months to a year. And I mean, I think a year and a half later, we had a business that we had both sort of started our own things, and then we merged one day. We were like, dude, we should just do this together. And to me, it just made sense. You know, there was this sense already in our friendship that like I was better with you and you were better with me.
Yeah.
You know, there's this like reciprocal strength. Also containment of both of our energies when we put them together.
Yeah.
You know, there's this like relational thing that was like strong and kind of safe and fun. And so off we went, started our own business. So
it was always very easy right from the get-go, easy and fun. And you and I went to music festivals. We started the business, and we just developed relationships together. We branched out and went to a lot of different things in town. And we were just socializing and just being full extrovert mode. And I had just moved to Vancouver, so I was really grateful to tap into your community. I was a natural connector, so I think you were meeting people through me as well. And it was just a very synergistic thing. And I finished law school, I got articled, and I passed on getting my first job as a lawyer in favor of going into business with you. And I remember you had a great financial opportunity as well, and you chose me, you chose us, you know, chose the business, and that was really cool. And like a real, I think I was, you know, they gave me some confidence of like, okay, well, here's this guy that I respect, and he's choosing to do business with me, and, you know, carve out a bit of a life path for some time with me. Like, amazing. So
That was a fun time, man. It was a fun time. Just taking risks together.
Yeah.
And trying something new and leaning into each other, leaning on each other for help.
Yeah.
So enter men's work. Somewhere in there in that first couple years, I think we both went to the same open house at PT Mistelberger's house, where he was running what was then the Samurai Brotherhood, and there was one group, right?
Yeah.
Did we go to the same one?
I don't think we went to the same one.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I remember going to his place on Alma or something, just off Alma, and there was about 15, maybe 20, maybe even 20 guys there.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first group. Yeah. And Sal Tusi had invited us.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went.
Did Nick Solacek run the open house?
No, I didn't go to an open house. It wasn't it was not an open house.
In a circle. It wasn't like the new structure, but it was like in a circle.
Yeah, it was in a circle. It was like an existing men's group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe it was an open house, or maybe it was just dropping into a meeting.
Yeah, the first half they talked about, here's what we're getting out of this.
Yeah.
And then the second half, if you guys want to stay, we're going to do some stuff.
No, you're right. Yeah, we both did attend the same thing. Yeah. Cool. So anyway, so that was that. And T was this older alpha figure who was kind of mysterious and a bit gruff and had this don't fuck with me energy. Mm-hmm. And you and I were living with Sal. We were roommates, the three of us, 3 guys living in a place together in Kits. And we were like, let's start a men's group. And we couldn't pull it off. No, yeah. We tried a couple iterations and we couldn't get all the guys to show up. Yeah. And it was free. We didn't have strong attendance standards. We didn't know exactly where we were going. And it was really just about getting together and talking about our lives. But there wasn't enough meat there for us to focus on. Yeah. And Phil had all this history and experience being in men's groups, the Sterling groups, and having run his own, Samurai Brotherhood in the past, a couple times in the past. And he just had just going back to structure, he had stuff there that we could settle into, and work with, all these exercises from all of his different leanings, right? All of his different experience. He was sharing that stuff with us. And so, yeah, our thing fizzled because there just wasn't really real leadership there from either of us. No, it was just kind of the blind leading the blind a little bit. We're just we were hungry. Yeah, we were hungry, right? But we were peers. There was nobody who was old enough, wise enough, experienced enough to be the real leader. So we needed to seek that out, and we did. And then that group grew. And yeah, I don't know if you want to get into how the Arka Brotherhood grew, but it mushroomed. I'm sure you've talked about that. We've talked about it a bit already. Yeah. Yeah, but it grew and grew and grew. And you and I both became leaders within that community, of course, and that, became a central and remains a central part of my life. Did you end up in Wolf Squad? Yeah, so I started in Wolf. That was the first group. So I was in the original group, and then Wolf for a bit with Chris Solchek and Leo Chung. They were the captains of that group. Yeah. And then I left to start Elephant with Jordan Gray. Jordan. Yeah. And you guys were co-captains. We were co-captains. We ran Elephant, I think, for 3 years. Uh-huh. So that's when you ended up as a captain. So yeah. And Matt enters the picture in there as well with Elephant later on. Not with Elephant. I don't think he might have been a lieutenant in Elephant. Yeah. And then you guys broke off. But then we broke off, started Eagle, and then Matt became captain soon after that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me, what was your experience early on with the men's group? What were some of the preconceptions that you had? What were some of the judgments that you had? And how did that change over time? Well, I'll tell you the story about Tirtha. And so this is adjacent to the men's work. So this is CRT, the Conscious Relationship Training course. So Tirtha ran this course, and you were in it, and Shalina and a number of other. So I walked up to this group, and Tirtha is up there teaching something about relationship you know, the nature of relationship being that two individuals have to feed something jointly. And if they don't have a sort of a common purpose, the relationship's going to fizzle out. So some interesting thing. And I chirped Tirtha in that right away. Like, I'd never met the guy. And I was just like, so where are you going with this? Yeah. Just kind of, you know, giving him something. And he turned to me and he, you know, like, he kind of ripped me, you know, he said like, oh, somebody wants some energy, basically. Like, he just named it immediately for what it was.
Interesting. You're asking this weird fucking question.
Yeah. Why are you asking this weird fucking question? You know, like, not like, fuck you, get out of my classroom, which he totally could have done. Yeah. He didn't really respond defensively, but he responded it with some energy.
Yeah. What's going on with you?
Yeah. Totally. You're in here to learn about you. This is a perfect instance for you to do exactly that, which is so exactly what I was trying to get the whole time with watering the TVs and whatever in my childhood. And nobody had the wisdom to actually create that moment for me. So Tirtha, in an instant, called me forward and then brought everybody in the room, men and women, to give me a lot of energy. And so they all said, like, these are my judgments of you, Steve. And, you know, dropped like, oh, you're full of yourself. You're arrogant. You're this, you're that, like whatever judgments that they had about me. And it felt great.
Like, there's a part of you in those moments. I think if you're sufficiently open to it, you just feel kind of seen. Yeah. You feel seen by people when they name this shit.
I was like, I am fucking full of myself. I am arrogant and I am all these things. And I knew it was a problem and it was causing me harm in my life and harm in my relationships. And so to just have that cleanly named was very useful. And then, you know, it's kind of like the start of a love affair with CRT, with men's work, with all this stuff. It's like, oh shit, this is a container where I can show up and the things that are not working in my life are going to be witnessed, called out, and I'm going to be given an opportunity to work on them.
And I can test a relationship with a strong man. Yeah. And he will pass the test by, you know, asserting boundaries, just meeting my fire with fire, but also with love and containment. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. He's not going to pretend.
Like exiling me or without just saying like, okay, I'm just going to let that stupid comment pass and then just like move on because he's uncomfortable with that. You know, he just leaned right into it with you and was like, hey, here's an opportunity to look at what's going on with you. Yeah. Really cool. And for context, you said Tirtha, which is Phil T. Misselberger, right? Who started Samurai Brotherhood and then Arka. Sometimes we call him Tirtha. Sometimes we call him T. Sometimes we call him Phil. Yeah. Great story, dude. I remember that. You're like, so where are you going with this, T? Like, why are you teaching us this today?
I'm bored. Can we get to the next slide, please?
What do you mean, why am I teaching you this today? You guys signed up for this course. It's very entertaining being in that kind of a container where, you know, people are kind of exposing themselves, and then you have a teacher who can very directly call out what he's seeing and then uses the group and their vision to point it out and just like really kind of hone in on it. And really just kind of like back your ego into a corner where you're exposed, but you're exposed with love, and you're exposed in a community where it's not like, if we find your ego, you're out of here. Totally. You know, it's like, it's actually just a great opportunity every time that happens. Yeah. As long as you're willing to look at it.
Yeah. You know? And I couldn't have been more willing. I was so excited to be a part of that community. It was novel for me. It was the first time that I felt like I'd been really met. So yeah. And so I became very enthusiastic about the Brotherhood, trying to get other guys involved with it and leading the groups. And I think in those early days, especially, it was almost like this kind of competition to call each other out, you know, and be like the most like incisive with how we saw people. So maybe sometimes there was a little bit too much ego there, and But yeah, it was all just part of the process.
What did you love about that first group that you were part of? Like, why did you feel, let's just like name what it was that helped you. Like, I get that you loved Phil and his mastery, but what was it about your group and the Brotherhood that was like, that you loved or that was working for you?
Yeah. They were men that I admired. You know, like everybody and I'm referring to Elephant here. That was really like the group that really became my group. We were with him for 3 years and the relationships were very strong. Right away, one of the guys in the very first meeting, you know, he breaks down and cries and talks about what's going on in his life, unpacks it all. And which was, you know, a shocking and inviting display of vulnerability. But the fact that it came from this man who was so accomplished financially, super fit, good looking, you know, had all these sort of status markers of success, but he was willing to show his heart. You know, like that was unbelievable and something that I had never experienced. And when I looked around the room in Elephant, you know, these were strong guys. These were guys who, we all had our challenges. Probably wouldn't be in a group like this if we didn't have them, but they were accomplished. They were driven. They were smart. They were fit. These were guys that I could learn something from.
It's interesting that you say that because I just had breakfast with Phil and a couple other guys and we were talking about the public perception of men's groups and there, I think in some people's minds, maybe in a lot of people's minds, when you talk about men's groups, there is a preconception that these guys are like kind of hurting.
Right.
Or kind of broken or like really needing help. And not what you just described. You know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you're saying that. It's just like, that's real for me. Like that's what I understand about this work and this community. Yeah. Is that it's not that at all. But I think sometimes there's a preconception about that's what it's about. Why would you go to a men's group consistently?
Well, what is the most popular depiction of men's groups in modern culture? Fight Club.
Yeah. Right? Gangs. Yeah.
No, Fight Club. Not gangs.
Fight Club.
But Fight Club, the movie, right?
Yes.
You remember the scene I'm talking about. I'm talking about the scene where, there's like this super overweight guy with like the big man boobs, and he comes in and you know they're having a big hug and they're just a total mess. And it's actually not a men's group, of course.
I know what you're talking about.
It's an AA group or an NA group or something.
Yeah, I think maybe there was also
men helping men.
Men helping men.
Men helping men.
A grief group there. He was going to grief groups. Yeah, and he's like, he's crying.
Right, because he's just like this tourist for healing,
self-help,
and grief, and self-help, and
he gets addicted to
navel gaze. Addicted to the navel gazing, addicted to the my pain, my suffering.
Well, and like the prelude to that in the beginning is like he's just living in his apartment, ordering shit from IKEA, and just living a totally boring life. He's like disconnected from
his heart, his body,
everything,
his sexuality, like everything. He's just like this dead consumer man.
So he finds the ability to feel in these groups. Yeah. It's totally, I hear you. Like, right? I think that is definitely a public perception of men's groups.
Kind of a cool thing and not wrong to learn how to feel again inside of men's groups or other, healing sort of containers. And it's a good thing. But I do think that did contribute to some of the perception of, well, you got to be super messed up to join a men's group or whatever. Yep. And the reality is, yes, absolutely. There are men who are drawn to this work, who are seeking healing, and almost every man is, you don't really come if you don't want to work on yourself. But that's the through line, is these are men who want to become better and are willing to unpack their ego, shed some of the layers, show who they really are, and expose that. There can be a point where it does become navel gazing. Yeah. That's absolutely a reality and a risk of any group or therapeutic container. Yeah. You could be in one-on-one therapy for 10, 12 years and get absolutely nothing done because you're just venting and talking about your shit. And why Arka works, why the groups that I participate in have worked so well is because we haven't tolerated that. We've set a standard which says, if you have a thing that you're working on, we expect you to work on it. We expect you to not just talk about it and vent and, complain about your wife or your job, but to go actually get a new job and work on connecting with your wife or whatever it is, make your life better. And if you're not doing that, are we going to make it so uncomfortable for you that you're going to leave the group?
Do something about it. Do something about it. Or we're going to raise the heat. We're going to just turn the heat up. And there is that kind of like challenging energy, like it's funny talking about Fight Club because, and the preconceptions of what men's work is, and just thinking about Sacred Sons. I was just thinking about Sacred Sons. Like Sacred Sons, they've got a great social profile out there, like there's plenty of videos of a man standing in a circle of other men crying. But then they also have plenty of videos showing sacred combat. So they're literally doing the two parts of Fight Club that are in the movie, like the crying and the fighting in a basement. But they're doing it in the right way, right? They're like holding good space for men to feel what they need to feel. And they're also doing the sacred combat thing. And then when they're done the combat, they're like, now how do you feel? And they're like having men share authentically what's alive for them after punching each other in the face, And it reconnects men to their wildness, to their true selves, like their masculinity, their power, their emotion, and that's what we're doing too, in our way. And So why and when did you choose to step into leadership? Why did you want to lead a group for yourself? How did that happen?
I wanted to lead a group because I thought I could, and I felt that I had something to offer, and because I wanted to grow into that as well. I also felt insecure and not ready for it and all those kinds of feelings too. And I knew it would be a good thing for me. So I just wanted to do it. I don't know. It wasn't a tough choice. It also felt like, you kind of like look around the room at who wants it and who doesn't. And it was just obvious that I was one of the individuals who did want it. So I'm really glad that I did do that. And it forces you to grow. When you're a leader, then all of a sudden you have to hold yourself and other people in the group to higher standards. You got to enforce just simple things, which are not simple, like everybody showing up on time and starting on time, ending on time, checking in. Not one of the biggest things we manage in group is not talking too long, being concise and brief so that you are respecting the energy and the amount of time that everybody has in the group, all that. So it is excellent training. Like I became a vastly better leader in work and everywhere else in my life because of that. I think it also taught me how to speak. I hadn't really spent much time communicating with other people. I was such an introvert growing up. And then in men's groups, you're engaged in public speaking for 3 hours every week. Just to speak to that, like to speak about my experience of you is like when we met and shortly after you had just passed the bar and we had like a celebration barbecue for you at Jericho Beach. And I was there. There was like, I don't know, 15 people, maybe 20 other people there. And at some point we were like, yeah, Steve, you passed the bar. Like, that's why we're here. Speech. And you were like, I don't want to give a speech. Like, thank you all for being here. Like you said a few things and you were nervous and unable to like step up in that moment when you were put on the spot to just like say what you're feeling and express, gratitude or triumph or whatever it was for that moment. Right. Which I can very much relate to, by the way. I would have responded exactly the same at that time in my life had I been put on the same spot. Not a speecher. And
here you are today, like, something like 9 years later or 10 years later, and you're leading these events. You had a party for 70 people the other day. I'm assuming you made a speech to those folks and at least like acknowledged that everybody was there. You're running these like talks, we'll talk about that at the end. And you've just kind of, you've really worked that muscle just by embedding yourself in situations where you are called to show up. And that's what I heard in your choice as well to lead, was like the opportunities were there asking to be filled, and you were, fully on board for this mission that we're doing in Arka.
Yeah.
And at some point it's like, why not you?
Yeah.
Like it's only why not you? It's only not you if you actively say no. And why would you do that? At some point you have to stop saying no and start saying yes.
Yeah.
Even though you're scared, even though you're nervous, even though you don't feel ready or capable.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for a lot of new captains in Arka, but gather courage and move forward. It's one of our codes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No. And it has taught me so much about leadership. And I'm very grateful for it. And I think there's something about being a leader inside of this community when you're surrounded by other leaders too, who, again, you look up to them, you admire them, and you support each other in this path. And it's a principled organization, right? Like we're all anchored by this code. So it just feels very healthy. And I feel like the ego doesn't get caught up as much because it's in service of something that's not strictly about yourself. And really that's what leadership is everywhere, whether you're building a business. I own a small business and I am a leader there. Does that mean, I'm the best person or something, or like need like to be showered with accolades? No. Being the leader means you are just simply electing to shoulder the most responsibility. You're the person who holds the group together. I'm the person at work who is holding the business together and ensuring that everybody gets paid, that we have new money coming in, new clients, etc. And it's an honor, it's servant leadership, right? And I think that's what Arka stands for. Yeah.
Yeah. Like take the seat.
Yeah. Take the seat and serve.
Take the seat and serve.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know everything about where you're going or where we're going. You don't need to be like a perfect king or a god in order to take the seat of leadership. You need to show up, be sincere about your desire to serve, and show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice, man. And from there, like, there's so much in your story from there. Eventually the Brotherhood grows. I grow in my leadership in the Brotherhood. I started the Ronin division. You were in my first Ronin squad, and then you broke off and started the second one. Eventually Phil asks us to come in and assist him as the Brotherhood grows, and the executive branch starts with Nick, then Nick and you, then Nick, you, me. And we did that for a few years, the three of us, and presided over the change in name, which was very much spurred by you for good reasons. And then here we are today. Now it's Matt and I leading the Brotherhood, and you and I'd like to pivot to you and I and our friendship. And like, what we've gone throughout the years in this sort of 10-year, 11-year arc that we've been through since that first ayahuasca ceremony, and many men's work weekends, many other trips of different kinds, many music festivals, dances, living together, running a business together.
Yeah.
There's been a lot, man. And, would love to reflect on what I would like to do is for each of us to share a difficult, memorable experience in our friendship.
A difficult, memorable experience in our friendship. Okay. So I mean, I know we had some breakdowns in our business relationship when we were running that, and we had some conflict. Okay. I'll share one that was difficult for me. This was challenging to navigate. And I don't know if I have some cool lesson that comes out of it, but whatever.
Yeah.
We were living together. This is at the start of the pandemic. You were more, I wasn't even really paying attention to the news. I just don't pay attention to the news. So I was like, whatever, pandemic schmemic. Who cares?
Pandemic.
Pandemic. You were a lot more concerned about it. And you're like, Steve, this is actually going to be a really big deal. The world's going to shut down. Yeah. And I was running breathwork ceremonies at the time.
Yeah, every Friday or something.
Every Friday in the city, and bringing together 30, 40 people to breathe all over each other. Yeah. And you and I were roommates with your wife. And yeah, and you were like, hey, you can't do that. You can't do that and expose Shalina and I to everything that's going to be
this risk.
Yeah, this risk, right? And that was really difficult for me because I had to accept the fact that I was either had a choice to like move out, which I was not going to do, and continue doing what I was going to do, or just be subordinate in that moment and just accept your will. And Shalina's will too, you know? Yeah. So yeah, that was really challenging because it was a power dynamic where I wanted to be the alpha, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the moment actually that I was going to bring up as well.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Cause that was like, we definitely had our other squabbles.
Yeah.
Brotherhood sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Power
we had some
dynamic.
fights about the name change.
Yeah. Yeah. But just like, just fighting like brothers a little bit.
Yeah.
Power struggles. But in that one was quite clear because like, yeah, I didn't like that you were running these breath circles. And I mean, I was fine with you running these breath circles until that moment. This was like the week that we were about to shut down. Like I think we were talking about a breathwork thing happening on Friday, and the following Wednesday, the world shut everything down. Everything closed. And so we were fighting about this on like the previous Wednesday. It's like 1 week before everything went down.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had been following things more, and I was definitely anxious about COVID. I was like buying masks and was like seeing what was coming out of China and Italy and like, yeah, I was freaked out. I'm way less freaked out now. I totally flipped actually over the course of the next year. But yeah, I was scared. And I sort of like started talking to you about your breathwork thing and saying like, hey man, you can't do this. It's not responsible. Like, you know, you're going to get, all of those people could get sick, and like we could bring that home and we could get sick and you'd be doing that to us. Like we need to start thinking communally here and like making sacrifices, and just, we need to be careful for a little bit. And I don't know. I don't even know how clearly I was bringing that to you. And I definitely know that I wasn't sharing what I was feeling. I was more so like trying to tell you what to do, or tell you, and even just sort of like inferring that you should know.
Yeah.
And I remember like, we kind of like went back and forth about it a little bit, and we weren't like sitting like this talking, having a real good clearing about it. It was sort of almost in passing. You were over here in the kitchen. I was over there on my laptop, which is a bad setup for a heavy conversation. And I remember just kind of like, yelling at you or raising my voice at least, and being like, I don't fucking trust you. And yeah, we just kind of like popped it, and it was quite uncomfortable. And I actually felt quite bad about how I brought that to you. I do think my concerns were legitimate, but I didn't bring it in a good way. And yeah, we had a rupture. And I don't even remember. Do you remember how we repaired that?
Not really.
We did sit down and talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had me and Shay. We had a number of like healy, lovey-dovey moments.
Yeah.
So I don't have a specific recollection, but yeah,
that was a hard moment. But
yeah,
what I love about our relationship is that we could move through that. You know, like there's a lot of roommate relationships that I've had, and a lot of friendships where when something like that happens, we kind of like retreat into our own adaptive patterns and defensiveness, and we don't lean into repair. We don't lean into owning like what this brought up for me is, you know, and just having those clearing conversations, and then coming back to like endeavoring to come back to love, come back to connection together.
Yeah.
And we did that, and we ended up locked down in that house for, you know, a couple of years that felt like 10 years, you know, during COVID.
Yes,
you know?
and no. I left, as you might recall.
Right. Yeah. You went to Mexico.
I went to Mexico.
Right?
So I guess, yeah, where I felt like I could be free, and because it was a bit lawless down there.
Yeah.
So.
And we ended up going to Mexico too.
Yeah. And you guys eventually did too. And we all had different, but yeah, no, 100%. We always had a willingness, and I don't think I ever felt like our relationship's over, or like Ben's not going to be close in my life anymore. Yeah. I've always seen you as a brother, like since the moment we met, really. And there has been that kind of family commitment of like, hey, there might be moments when, and I felt this when we were in business together, I would often feel frustrated by, you know, probably like viewing you as an impediment to something. Like you were kind of the brakes, I was the gas in some ways.
More conservative.
You're more conservative, and I was more reckless.
And you had like a lot of ideas.
Yeah. You know? And I wanted to execute on all of them and couldn't. Yeah. And yeah, so there's like a sort of a natural like, hey, we're good together for a time, and we also need space to both feel like we can be in our leadership. Yeah. And I think that respect is like what has contributed to the longevity of our relationship, that we both intuitively have understood that about one another. Yeah. And yeah, see one another's greatness, and don't require that you be like me or that I be like you, but rather enjoy the fact that we're different. Yeah. Yeah.
And accept change as it happens. Yeah. You know, like ending our business or ending our partnership in business was difficult. Initially, as I resisted it, you know, because like we had big dreams. Yeah. But then we both started to know that there was a pivot needed, you know, and yeah, I think you always feel these things earlier. You always have a sense of what that something needs to change before I do. It shows up in your energy, and I perceive you as pulling away or be like kind of slacking on the mission in some way. Yeah. But really, like you're feeling the ebbing need to actually shift directions in some way.
Yeah. And we experienced that when we were in leadership together at the Brotherhood, right? When we were running the org. Yep. My energy started to dwindle a little bit. And there was a shift. And I think we were quicker and more agile with making that shift happen.
Yeah. I had been through it with you before. And previously, like when we were in business, I would judge that as like immature, or like just not being steadfast enough, not being persistent enough, or like you're just following your energy, bro. You know? Yeah. But really, like now I've learned to trust your energy, and to trust that when your energy is moving, it needs to move, and that I can resist that and judge it, or I can see that as one of your assets and one of your gifts, you know? And I think that acceptance of one another, like what you're just what you were saying, that acceptance that we're different and that that's a good thing, and that we both bring certain gifts to the relationship, is why we're still here, like loving each other and having been through so much, you know? Yeah. And closer than ever. Right. Yeah. So what is a positive, memorable experience about our relationship that you would like to share?
Dude, last night I was going to bed, and you know, iPhone shows you random photos, and there was, I was like, this is so perfect. It was a photo of you and I at Eclipse Festival in 2017. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. We're just looking happy and probably blasted on acid. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, just hugging each other, loving each other, and you know, both looking at the camera. Like, I don't know, it's just one of those great pics of us at a festival. You probably know the one I'm talking about. We have some great photos. there's so many, dude. Like I remember last year at Base Coast, we're stretching, holding each other's hands. Dude, okay, I'll share this one. Actually, last year at Base Coast, because this was moving for me. Like I had like made some comment, like somebody in our group, Brad Gamble actually commented, "Oh, Ben really takes really good care of you." Just neutral sort of observation about our dynamic. Yeah. You're so well prepared and organized and brought like food and cooking really healthy things. And I'm like eating out of a can of beans or something like that. Right. And I'm like, yeah, he does. Like, I don't really know why I deserve it or something like that. It's sort of making a bit of a self-deprecating remark. And you just clocked it, didn't really say anything in the moment. And then later on during the day, we're on the dance floor and you just took me aside and like grabbed my hands and locked eyes with me and just said, "You meet me. Mm-hmm. We are in a reciprocal relationship. Mm-hmm. We support one another. Your energy feeds me. Mm-hmm. You don't owe me anything." Yeah. This is not a one-sided dynamic. And just like attacked my ego, Yeah. That was saying I'm not good enough in some way, that I don't deserve this, that Ben's just he's charitable. Yeah. And that was very healing for me. Yeah. Yeah. That was because that cast aside a dynamic that I think had been present throughout our relationship, like you were always like a little bit better, like better, but like more stable anyways than I was. Yeah. You had this stability, this groundedness that I admired and that I benefited from by being in relationship with you. Yeah. And so there was this part of my ego that was like, I'm not good enough for this, like why do I deserve this like amazing presence but that's bullshit. I just wasn't seeing my contribution to your life. Yeah. 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 That was a good moment, dude. Yeah. That was a good moment, man. Yeah, you bring adventure into my life. Like I am an adventurer, but I also can hold back and I can be conservative and I cannot fully like stretch. I cannot fully say yes to life sometimes because I'm scared or I don't feel totally well equipped or competent in something. And you have this way of courageously jumping into things and just saying yes, and so when I'm with you, that's what I'm able to do. So I'm able to stretch and like I'm able to just have more fun in life. You bring more fun to my life. That's very, very valuable. Yeah. Yeah. I remember a time at Eclipse Festival. Actually, this is like 8 years ago or something, 7 years ago. This is where we met Matt, by the way. Yeah. We were in some form of a trip and we were on our own and we were in some like tented area and we saw some like weird interaction with some guy who was bugging out with his girlfriend, or I don't know who she was, with him. And he was like, couldn't be with her. And like, he was like crying and she was like, there was something going on where like, he was not okay with feeling his feelings. And she just like, was like, hey, like with him, but he was like flipping out and then like kind of ran out of there. Yeah. And we were both just like, wow, this is really uncomfortable to witness. And we had been in the Brotherhood for I don't know, year or two, maybe 3 by that point. And we were like, oh, we need to do something with the energy that we're feeling right now. And we were like, let's do some Wim Hof and let's face each other. So we sat cross-legged and we breathed up. We did the breath, breathed out and held. And in the state that we were in, just experienced this like, I don't know what you experienced. You can tell me, but like just this like real deep drop in with each other. The world fucking disappeared. And
just felt this like, this strength, this super deep heart connection with you. And, like just love, power, a feeling of support, like mutual support. And, yeah, definitely like the deepest connective moment I've ever had with another man.
Yeah.
And we both started crying right away.
Yeah.
It just melted us.
Yeah.
You know, one breath, one hold. And we did a few rounds.
Yeah.
And our friends came over and we were like, guys, try this breath.
Check this out.
Eye to eye, you know?
Yeah.
And I've since shared that with so many guys, done it with you a bunch of times and men's groups. But yeah, I just remember like, I just felt like in that moment, I was like, oh, we're bros forever now. Like, I just feel this unbreakable connection, admiration, and love for you.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I'd forgotten about that. I mean, it's clear in my mind now that you mentioned it, but yeah, that was the first time that I had done eye gazing with Wim Hof.
Yeah.
On a substance.
Yeah.
Quite the combination. And I just remember crying and just feeling such a powerful bond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, you put it, no notes. You put it so well. Yeah.
Okay. Before we finish.
Yeah.
A sentence stem. Back and forth.
Okay. Popcorn sentence stems.
Timer. Let's do this. This is going to be fun.
Okay.
Maybe not something that's ever been done on a podcast before.
Cool.
Something I love about you is.
Something I love about you is your heart, your consistency, the fact that you are principled. You are a man that lives by values, which makes you trustworthy. I know that you are going to show up and be a certain way and do a certain thing because I know that it's informed by what your values are, which don't really change.
Thank you. Something I love about you is your tenacity, your drive, your just the energy that like pours through you on a daily basis in every moment. It's like, it's in this photo right behind you here where you're lifting Joel up. You're just like, you know, like you have this like amazing strong man in you, this thrust, this forward thrust. I was having a vision a couple weekends ago and you came up and I was just thinking about you in the gym and just what a beast you are in the gym and at work and in men's group. Like you're always driving forward, always growing. And this growth mindset that's just like fed by your inner fire that it just makes me better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Something I love about you is your connection with your feelings. You are such a masculine man and presence, and like you drop in more readily than I do, more easily. Like like I've seen you in so many moments, you know, thinking about Cooper, thinking about Riker, the big moments, the big losses that we've experienced in our lives. Like you are there. You're able to really be open, be present, to be this unobstructed channel for your heart and to create that safety for other guys to drop in. And it's just so beautiful. It's amazing, really. And you just hold emotion in a really beautiful way that I've always really admired. Like you have this very steady, grounded, masculine contact with it. You don't overindulge. You're just there. You're present with it. And you let it pass through. Yeah. So cool.
Thanks, man. Something I love about you is just how fun you are, man, how funny you are, how you bring joy to situations, to relationships. I've lived with you twice, right? Once with Sal and once with my wife, Shalina. We lived together, the three of us, for like 4 years, maybe 5. And, you know, her and I can get a little bit serious, a little bit bickery, a little bit spicy. And having you in the house and you in the relationship there, just like you bring a levity, a lightness, like you have this ability to like break out into play, break out into dance, just be goofy, kind of at a moment's notice. And I have so many memories of being with you at music festivals or being with you just at home, and just even just being like upstairs in the bedroom, and I hear you and Shalina downstairs in the kitchen, and there's just laughter just bursting out of both of you for a long time, you know, like you guys are really going for it, and just appreciating that, like, that's a gift that you bring to our relationship. But in that period, that was very much a gift that you were bringing to my romantic relationship. You know, like you were, yeah, it was such good medicine to live with you and to have your energy in the mix there. And I think we probably had our, you know, ways of feeding you as well through all of that. But the element of play, like I'm a playful guy, but even with you, like I can get kind of serious. I can be on the serious side of things, but you bring me back to joy and play. And yeah, man, it's just a nourishing energy.
Something I love about you is how you show up in our community, in our circle of friends, on all the freaking endless number of adventures that we've been on, the North Coast Trail, like these huge hikes, the music festivals. Like you always show up as the man with the plan, with the snacks, with the water, with the headlamps, with the direction. You know, it's very much the king kind of alpha leadership qualities. And it really holds the group together and brings this amazing sense of safety for everybody, of feeling cared for and just connected. You know, it allows everybody in the group to connect with really easily with one another. And there's like a kind of standard for how people are going to behave, which is, you know, basically like be kind and loving towards each other and play nice and go have a great time, you know? I love that. It's just very fatherly like you, and makes you are a father, of course, in reality as well. And you're an exceptional father for that reason. And I am loving seeing you raise your daughter. It's just been, yeah, such a treat to witness that. Yeah, I love you, man.
I love you too, man. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to finish by just appreciating how you, in those moments, if I'm in the leadership position, you're just a really good team player. Like you really are good at having my back. And I can trust you. And then there's moments where I can't lead, or where I don't want to lead, or I don't know what to do. And you're keenly aware of that and able to like step up and have my back when needed. You know, I always have a sense that you've got my back. And man, it's so valuable.
Yeah.
It's priceless. That's good, man.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
Arka Talks?
Arka Talks. Yeah. Okay, let's wrap up. So let's talk about Arka Talks live. This is the Arka Talks podcast. We're going to do something in Vancouver, and let's talk quickly about why and what and what's coming.
Well, this podcast is probably going to come out, in a couple months?
Yep.
So by the time you're listening to this, there's likely going to be some promotion around the first live Arka Talks event in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And this is significant for you and I because we spent a lot of time connecting through Man Talks,
Yep.
which was this amazing event that Connor Beaton put on 10, 11 years ago in Vancouver. It was like a live sort of TED Talk sort of thing with speakers who would come in, share their piece about their business. Maybe they were a relationship coach, talking about money, sex, whatever, cool, interesting topics. And they would share for 10, 15 minutes. And they were always impactful talks.
Yeah.
And they brought together Vancouver's kind of conscious community, a seeker community, but also a grounded seeker, you know, like the kind of people who are got their shit together in business, but also emotionally and spiritually, and are seeking to improve themselves in all sort of facets, well-rounded people. Yeah. And I loved that. We met so many great people through that community. Yeah. A lot of them ended up joining Arka Talks or vice versa, or pardon me,
Arka Brotherhood.
The Samurai Brotherhood at the time.
Yep.
And we want to bring that back. Yeah. So that's what Arka Talks is all about here in Vancouver. And we're going to have incredible speakers. We're going to have really interesting topics. We're going to have cool ways for people to interact with one another and get connected and build, nurture, develop some real relationships that go a lot deeper than the surface level stuff about what do you do for work?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that's it.
And you're going to be our MC, our host.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really excited, man. This is perfect for you. This is a perfect role for you. You're such a connector. I mean, you know, going back to appreciations, you just have this way of opening relationships with people, about a way of connecting with people that not a lot of people have this kind of gift in the magnitude that you do. You're a real connector, and you can go deep with people really fast, you know? And you know, just the trajectory as well in terms of like public speaking, like, yes, great. Steve leading the charge in an event like this is something I'm really excited about. And yeah, I'm grateful that you accepted our invitation to do it. And I'm really looking forward to what we create with these live talks. I think it's going to be great. I loved what came out of the Man Talks community at that time. There was just such great people, such great conversations, really great connections. I know we had a number of social connections with people, and lots of cool events coming out of that. So it's going to reignite something here for Vancouver, for the Arka guys, for the ladies who have been connected to the Arka guys or want to. It's a co-ed event, and we're just branching out into a public facing sphere, and not just talking about men's work, just like talking about how to grow, how to be better. Yeah.
Life work. Yeah.
How to life
it up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. And please tell people what you do, how they can find you, if they like you and they want to work with you. What is it?
Sure. So apart from participating in the Arka community, I run a community called the Get After It Club, which is a community for men here in Vancouver. And it brings together guys who are entrepreneurial, who are interested in fitness and in deeper connection. And we do a lot of things in the city, primarily sauna, cold plunges, and talking. So we do that once a month. That's a community that I'm going to be growing more and more throughout the next year. And I also run a law firm. So I own a law firm. I'm a business and I'm an estate planning lawyer. So I work with individuals, business owners and their families to help grow their businesses and ensure that their wealth is cared for and is transmitted in a healthy way to the next generation. So that's what I do. You can find me at Parr Business Law, Parr Business Law. Contact me on, all the socials, which I'm sure you will link below.
Yeah, we will.
And yeah, if you're interested in the Get After It Club, please ping me about that. I'm also going to be starting something that's co-ed in nature as well too.
Awesome, dude. Yeah. I love that you're doing that. Thank you, Steve Parr, for doing another awesome episode with me, man. It was great.
Yeah.
I love this shit.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, brother.
It's a pleasure.
Let's finish it with a nice growly ho.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, ho.